it reenacted.
I was moved. I was moved last night. I mean, actually, early this morning. I only watched the first episode. But let's go to the guest line right here, 1210. And my man Ricardo Hazell is in the big building with us from the Shadow
Hello.
League, senior cultural editor. What's up, Ricardo? Thank you for joining us on your weekend.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir.
To discuss, Ava DuVernay's groundbreaking new work, When They See Us. I mean, as you've been talking about and are, of course, well aware, the manner in which she's able to bring this story to life and illustrate it on a deeper level, a compassionate level, but a raw and obviously traumatic level is nothing short of brilliance, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched the first episode this morning. My co-host, she watched all of them, and immediately the first thing I noticed was how it seemed to me like they were railroaded from the beginning, like the confessions, the way the whole thing transpired. I'm sure you're from that area. You remember this well. What was it like back then when all of this was going on? Was it like a fever pitch?
Well, indeed, it was a fever pitch. And not only did it resonate from obviously an immediate, law enforcement level where, police presence in the community. I mean, that was just another reason for it to be there, and when there's an increased police presence, statistically, that means that there's going to be more instances of brutality and more instances of people being railroaded, just like the exonerated five. So that was the atmosphere that it was in. Then you juxtapose that with the ongoing white supremacist narrative that black boys are wild, they're uncontrollable. I was in junior high school. I went to a junior high school in Trenton, New Jersey called Junior 3. Just 7th, 8th, 9th graders. They called it Jungle 3, and they published it in the paper.
Wow.
I mean, this is, that's what the headline was, that we were wild and we were animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this was the atmosphere that it was in. That happened to me in '88, the exonerated five, and the injustice that occurred to him happened the next year. So, yes, I think I was about 15 when it all went down. So, yeah, it was obviously, something that immediately affected us in the community. And there was another aspect for me, at least personally. A lot of our elders, I heard a few smatterings of, well, what were they doing in the park anyway? Why were they there? In the immediate aftermath, because you know how sometimes you hear old folk talk,
Right.
and they talk how they feel in the moment. And it just struck me that there wasn't an immediate, galvanization overall, to say, hey, protect these kids. But there wasn't. I mean, not at the time. It was over time that we all began to see, what was really going on. So that's how it was. And this film definitely brings back those emotions for me on a visceral level, deep in my gut. And this is why I'm glad Ava did it. She's such a caring sculptor of images that I couldn't imagine anyone doing it with this sophistication and this caring blade, for lack of a better term.
And I did find out that one of the young men reached out to Ava and seeked her out specifically to have her produce this, to have her tell the story. And when you think about the climate in the country today, tell me, why do you think, Ricardo, this is so important for this story to be told right now in today's time and age?
To me, at least from the perspective of a Black person in America and studying its history as best I can to my understanding of such. White supremacy has been a static. It's been in a static existence. It's just what we have lived in for our existence in this land. And so, telling this story, in this environment, not only is relevant to today with everything that's going on with the prison industrial complex, as far as, the overall number of Black people that are still getting locked up on a regular basis. Like, for example, in New Jersey, they're talking about, how, weed is decriminalized, but yet they still lock up more people for possession of weed than any other state in the union. Wow. And you wouldn't think that because weed is decriminalized.
Right.
Well, the way white supremacy works is, it's going to take its toll, no matter the law. And you see here with the district attorney, she overrode her own moral objections just to go ahead and sentence these boys and get these boys sentenced and ruin their lives. And she doubted it the whole time. Oh, well, they're Black kids. If they're not guilty of this, they're guilty of something.
Yeah.
That's the ongoing thing, what it is to be a Black boy in America. So, in these days and times, it's an obvious correlation and I'm glad that it was done. It is difficult to watch, but it needs to be watched. It needs to be seen by all who care to know, the truth about what it is to be a part of a group of disenfranchised here in America.
CJ?
Jeff said you interviewed a couple of the actors.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So the actor who played Corey Wise, because I think after watching the entire thing, I felt like Corey got the shortest end of the stick. Mm-hmm. He had it the worst based on the circumstances. And I'm guessing the actor must have spoken to Corey so that he can evoke the emotion that Corey was feeling at that time.
Yes, he did say he had spoken to Corey. And in fact, the gentleman says that the real Corey Wise gave him his chain and gave him a hug when he met him and said, "You're Corey Wise now." You know what I mean?
Wow. And
so that's how deep it was, and that's how connected to the subject matter that these young men were. All of the exonerated five. And you'll notice we keep calling them the exonerated five.
Yes, I like that. I like that.
Yes. They aren't the Central Park Five. This is what the white supremacist media machine called them. And when I call it the white supremacist media machine, that's not me, that's not hyperbole. That's just not me being a radical guy. No, that's an actual fact.
Right.
They allowed a racist to publish an ad in the paper, not a politician at the time, just a rich white man calling on the death sentence for these young men. And, as actors, I know that you got to be connected. You got to be there.
Yeah.
You feel it. You got to be there in the moment, all the gut wrenching, all the tough choices. When you realize, you read the script and you already know that you're going to be found guilty, but as you're acting it out, being found guilty, being sentenced was something you knew you didn't need to do.
Yeah, that's tough, man. And to see the prosecutor, the prosecutors, the misconduct with them, the police, racial profiling, it all comes to light when you watch this.
Yeah. And
it bothers me, man.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. Just to play devil's advocate here, as a woman who has been touched inappropriately, to a certain degree, I understand what Felicity Huffman, that's the actress who played the lady who basically, she still thinks they're guilty, actually, which is crazy.
Yeah, she does.
She still believes it. But to a certain degree, when she describes the victim, the jogger, she she describes her so passionately. And then she just describes the black men, the boys, the exonerated five, as animals. And you see the passion that she has for the woman and the way she's saying her blood was pouring out of her and she was attacked. And I get it, because for her, to a certain degree, it's like all of y'all in the park and nobody saw nothing.
Right.
So for her, it's like somebody had to see something. And I get that just to a certain degree.
Park is when you realize the geographical Central Park.
And that's where
no way they could have been in two places at one time, and they completely ignored the geographic information.
And the timeline.
Whether south of the dam or north of the dam, or as part of like where they were and where the job was found. I believe, in even in the film, the detectives reasoned that, they couldn't have been way down there and made it up here in the time span that we're saying. And then that's when they made up something else and added it on.
Yeah.
So,
and that was the thing with Ava. She made sure the parents were speaking about Antron coming home late. And she was like, Antron came in almost like at 10 o'clock. And her time of the attack was set after 10. It was supposed to be between 10 and 11. So clearly Antron or these kids weren't even there during that time. They kept trying to push the time frame up. But women in these conclusions, just for a split second, I'm like, I get it. Because that's like your kids when they break something in the house. One of you knows something.
Yeah, somebody knows something.
and maybe they really just don't know nothing. Maybe it was the dog. But the fact that she stuck to it and she pushed it and she changed her timeline and she hid evidence and it was like, ma'am, how could you have so much hate in your heart for kids, children who are 14?
Yep, they were. Go ahead, Ricardo.
But again, black boys are disposable. Black boys are, Shamir Rice, he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
He's a boy.
They see him as men.
They see us as monstrous, and then they call grown-ass men son or, that kid, if they're white.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's always, the white supremacy and the prejudice is oftentimes it's subconscious. They think they're making rational decisions.
Right.
When that's just being racist the whole time.
We're talking to Ricardo. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, we're talking to Ricardo Hazell. You can follow him on Twitter at Nico's Mighty Dad from the Shadow League. Great friends of ours over there at the Shadow League. And Ricardo, by the way, is followed by Samuel L. Jackson. I just wanted to point that out because he pointed that out on his Twitter as well. I wanted to ask you, man, about back then, he was a real estate mogul in New York, Donald Trump, taking out a full-page ad in the 4 New York City newspapers calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty. That's how deep this thing got. And even though I haven't seen the entire series, I know people right now who've seen it and have contacted me over the last 24 hours, and they are all very emotional. How did you feel when you talked to those actors and all of this it just came back to you? What was that like? How did you feel?
I made sure to have a level head. I wanted to speak in a level tone and a level voice. And I wanted to speak clearly. So I just wanted them to their emotions to be what came through in their answers. And I'd spoken with Michael K. Williams and Marsha Stephanie Blake. They played the parents of Antron in the film, and I asked them, where did you get those emotions from? I mean, how difficult was it for you to find those emotions to, act this out on film? And Michael K., he had told me that, as a parent, it was easy for him to find that place. And as a black man, it was easy for him to find that place. So, it was really, surreal watching them both speak passionately, about what it took to dig deep down inside. And as you can see, particularly with both of them, actually, But Michael K's role, it stuck with me because if you remember, like, he's part of the reason, like, he became compromised by the police and he became frightened and said, "Oh, no, do whatever they say," because he was institutionalized.
Yes.
And he had the fear of the quote unquote man in him. And all they had to do was say boo, and he said, "Oh no, yeah."
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
He disgusted me.
Yeah, but I get what,
I was disgusted by by some of the things that he had done, but at the same time, I did understand. It's like, what would it be like? How traumatized would a man have to be for him to feel like, you know, it's better off for his family for him not to be around?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
I
And that
that.
just struck me as deep. Like, whoa.
It was deep.
Yeah.
But the prosecutor asked him a key question, and I asked this question in part 1 before I saw the trial.
Mm-hmm.
How could you let your son confess to something and expect him to go home? Because to a certain degree, as parents, you have to have common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't say, "Yes, son, say whatever they tell you to say," and have him confess and think, "Oh, I confessed, I'm going home." What?
Right.
Come on. Institutionalized or not, especially since he's been in prison before, he should have known better, and he should have told his son, "Don't admit to nothing."
Right.
Because they have him on tape admitting he did something, and that's why Donald Trump to this day still believes they did it.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Ricardo, the exonerated
Donald
five.
Trump is a racist. Donald Trump cannot be a barometer for anything.
Right.
But
He's
his
an irrational
logic,
racist, and his logic was simply the grandstand and a moment of black weakness. He can't stand as a pillar of anything.
but not as a pillar,
pride.
but as what. Remember, what is the name of this? When they see us.
Yeah.
So when he saw us, and in recent history, we're talking 2016, 2017, when they asked him, what did he say? He said, despite the evidence showing that they didn't do it, DNA and all, why would you confess to something you were not involved in?
But evidence.
I agree with
Fear.
you.
And what is the reasonable doubt? What is the reasonable doubt that in a sensationalized, racially polarizing situation that New York City cops would play fair? Come on now. Come on now.
Yeah.
In any instance, when has NYPD ever played fair? Like, we put all the cards on the table. No, they not. They manipulate the whole thing from start to finish to frame 5 black boys.
No, we know that.
And criminalize another couple million, at least here on the East Coast.
Of course. And that was my disappointment with Antron's father. I felt like you were locked up before.
Right.
The moment they threatened your job, not your life, just your job.
Your job.
You threw your son under the bus for your job.
Yeah, it was kind of weak, but we've seen that done, and like you said, Ricardo, this is systematic rather.
It's automatic. It's not to find out whether they didn't do it. It's to make them look like they did, and that's with anything. Anything with the law.
Yeah. So, with these guys being exonerated, and finally, being some financial compensation, obviously.
Yeah.
But to not get that apology, from
white supremacy.
Yeah, they're not.
White supremacy does not apologize for itself. That's why whenever the system or establishment gives something to quote unquote black people, it incenses me when they say thank you, because you owe that. What are you saying thank you for?
Right.
Like, for example, the brother Isaiah Washington, he was part of the initiative that helped, get the brothers out of jail, and like he went on and spoke about, thank you to Mr. Trump, and basically an underhanded slap to Obama on a downstroke.
Wow.
And I was like, first of all, you don't thank Mr. Trump. Y'all made that deal. You gave him a gap then. You ain't got to go back to Twitter or wherever and say it again.
Right.
Like, you ain't got to say it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What was Oprah Winfrey's role in all of this? Did she just have a financial role, or do you know?
I am not altogether sure. I believe she is producer.
Executive producer?
And of course, executive. super executive if something exists such as that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not familiar with any other roles she may have played in it, at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, her friendship, when you have a friendship such as she and Miss DuVernay, it's like two sons. They feed off each other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So of course, I'm sure there was some synergy there as far as creatively and otherwise that went in, even if it's not marked down somewhere. So.
Yeah. Man, this thing is powerful. These guys were awarded a $41 million settlement from the city. They did receive an apology from the New York City mayor, though, de Blasio, back in 2014.
Yeah.
But that's still kind of weak. Yeah,
but it stands as an official apology from New York because de Blasio was in office when he made it.
Right.
But other those involved, well, like I said, white supremacy ain't going to apologize for itself.
Yeah, man.
No.
It never does. You got to beat them in court.
Yep.
Or that's it.
Hey,
it ain't going to be. Yeah.
I definitely want to thank you for joining us this afternoon on the show. Ricardo, once again, folks, you can follow him at Nico's Mighty Dad. And you are one of those brilliant writers, sir, that I have a lot of admiration for, because every time you write a column, man, I absolutely consider it a slam dunk. Every time you do it,
man. I appreciate it very much. And thank you both for having me on. You're a wonderful host.
Yes, sir.
And also, you guys can follow me on IG at Rick Writer Renegade, and it's spelled like it sounds. Rick is R-I-C-K. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate you.